Imagine waking up 4 million years ago in East Africa, where survival meant facing saber-toothed cats, massive crocodiles, and hyenas the size of modern bears. The first humans didn't live in caves, didn't use fire, and couldn't even speak. But what they did to survive will blow your mind. These incredible ancestors walked upright across dangerous savannas, climbed trees to escape predators, and developed social strategies so advanced that scientists are still discovering their secrets today. Forget everything you think you know about early humans, because the real story is far more brutal, intelligent, and amazing than any Hollywood movie. From their shocking diet of raw meat and insects to their ingenious tool-making abilities, these early humans faced challenges that would terrify modern people. Yet they not only survived, but thrived in ways that shaped the future of our entire species. Get ready to discover the untold truth about humanity's most dangerous and extraordinary chapter. 4 million years ago, in the heart of what we now call Ethiopia and Kenya, a revolutionary change was taking place that would alter the course of life on Earth forever. The early hominids known as Australopithecus anamensis were becoming the first creatures to consistently walk upright on two legs, abandoning the safety of tree-dwelling life for the dangerous opportunities of the African savanna. Lucy's ancestors lived in a world that looked nothing like today's Africa. Instead of the dry, desert-like landscape we might imagine, this ancient East Africa was a mosaic of dense woodlands, grasslands, and lake systems. Massive volcanic activity shaped the terrain, creating the perfect conditions for fossilization that would later tell their story. The climate was warmer and more humid than today, supporting an incredible diversity of life and death. These early humans stood barely 3.5 feet tall, with long, powerful arms that retained the strength needed for climbing. Their brains were roughly the size of a modern chimpanzee's, about 1/3 the size of ours today. But don't let their small stature fool you. These were sophisticated survivors who had developed something no other primate possessed: the ability to see danger and opportunity across vast distances while standing upright. Walking on two legs wasn't just a cool evolutionary trick, it was a matter of life and death. The upright posture allowed them to spot predators like the massive Dinophalus, a saber-toothed cat that specialized in hunting primates from much farther away. It also enabled them to carry tools, food, and most importantly, their helpless infants across the increasingly open landscape as forests gave way to grasslands. But bipedalism came with serious costs. These early humans became much slower than their quadrupedal cousins when escaping immediate danger. They couldn't outrun the swift predators of the savanna, and they had largely given up the ability to quickly scramble up trees for safety. This forced them to develop entirely new survival strategies based on intelligence, cooperation, and planning ahead. Their daily routine began before sunrise, when the African savanna was still cool and many predators were less active. Small family groups of 6 to 8 individuals would emerge from their sleeping sites, elevated areas, near cliffs or large trees that provided protection from nighttime predators. The group always included at least 2 adult males, whose primary job was watching for danger while the others foraged. Food was everywhere, but so was competition. These early humans competed with massive herbivores like the ancient elephant, species Anankus, for the same fruits and vegetation. They had to outsmart giant baboons, avoid territorial hippopotamuses the size of small cars, and stay clear of pack-hunting hyenas that were far larger and more aggressive than their modern descendants. Their hands, freed from the necessity of walking, became incredibly versatile tools. They could strip bark from trees, dig for roots and tubers, and manipulate objects with a precision that their 4-legged competitors couldn't match. This manual dexterity would prove to be one of their greatest advantages in the constant struggle for survival. Perhaps most remarkably, These early humans had already begun to show signs of complex social cooperation. Fossil evidence suggests they cared for injured group members and shared food resources, behaviors that required a level of empathy and forward thinking that set them apart from other animals in their ecosystem. The stage was set for humanity's greatest adventure, learning to not just survive, but to dominate one of Earth's most dangerous environments. Life, 4 million years ago, meant living in constant awareness that you were both predator and prey. These early humans existed in a delicate balance, hunting smaller creatures while desperately avoiding becoming dinner for the apex predators that ruled ancient Africa. Their survival depended on understanding this deadly game better than any. Other species dot the predator roster of ancient Africa reads like a nightmare catalog of evolutionary killing machines. Massive crocodiles, some reaching lengths of over 25 feet, dominated water sources and riverbanks. The Megalotragus, an antelope the size of a modern buffalo, but with razor-sharp horns, could gore an unwary human with ease. But perhaps most terrifying were the saber-toothed cats, not just the famous Smilodon, but also Dinophalis and Megantereon, specialized primate hunters that had evolved specifically to kill our ancestors. These cats were patient, intelligent stalkers that understood human behavior patterns. They would wait near water sources at dawn and dusk, knowing that early humans needed to drink, but were most vulnerable during these transition periods. Fossil evidence from sites like Swartkrans in South Africa shows distinctive fang marks on early human skulls, proof that these predators successfully hunted our ancestors with terrifying regularity. But early humans weren't helpless victims. They had developed sophisticated anti-predator strategies that relied on their unique advantages. Upright posture for early detection, vocal communication to coordinate group responses, and tool use for defense. They created the first weapons, not for hunting large game, but for protection against the creatures hunting them. Sharp sticks, carefully selected stones, and coordinated group intimidation tactics became their primary defense mechanisms. When threatened, a group of early humans would form a defensive circle, with the largest males facing outward while making loud vocalizations and throwing rocks. This behavior, still seen in some modern hunter-gatherer societies, could successfully drive off even large predators that weren't expecting organized resistance. Their hunting techniques were equally innovative, but focused on smaller, safer prey. Early humans became expert scavengers, arriving at carnivore kill sites after the original predators had eaten their fill. Using crude stone tools, they could crack open large bones to access the nutrient-rich marrow inside, a food source that other scavengers couldn't reach. This scavenging behavior put them in direct competition with massive vultures and hyenas. But the nutritional rewards were worth the risk. They also hunted actively, but their targets were primarily small mammals, birds, reptiles, and insects. Termite mounds provided protein-rich meals that could be harvested with simple stick tools. Bird eggs were prized delicacies that required careful timing and tree climbing skills. Small antelope could be driven into natural traps or exhausted through persistent pursuit. Early humans might not have been fast, but they had remarkable endurance. Water sources presented both opportunity and extreme danger. While these locations attracted the small game that early humans hunted, they were also ambush sites for every major predator in the ecosystem. Approaching a water source required careful reconnaissance, with scouts checking for crocodile signs, predator tracks, and safe escape routes before the group committed to drinking. The constant pressure from predators shaped every aspect of early human behavior. They developed the first early warning systems, with designated lookouts who would scan the horizon for threats while others foraged. They learned to read animal behavior. When birds suddenly took flight or antelope became agitated, it usually meant a predator was approaching. Perhaps most importantly, They learned to use fire as protection, even though they couldn't yet create it themselves. Lightning-struck trees and natural fires provided opportunities to carry burning branches back to their sleeping sites, creating the first controlled use of fire for protection rather than warmth or cooking. Family structure 4 million years ago was a matter of survival strategy rather than emotional bonding, though evidence suggests these early humans developed surprisingly complex social relationships that would lay the foundation for all future human societies. These small family groups, typically consisting of 15 to 25 individuals, represented one of humanity's first great innovations: cooperative child rearing in an extremely hostile environment. Unlike modern humans, early human infants were born in an even more helpless state, requiring constant protection and care for the first several years of life. This created an enormous survival challenge. How could a group of early humans protect vulnerable children while also foraging for food and avoiding predators? Their solution was revolutionary: communal childcare and specialized roles within the family unit. Adult females, typically smaller and less physically powerful than males, became expert foragers and primary caregivers. They developed an encyclopedic knowledge of plant foods, seasonal patterns, and safe foraging areas. Women could identify dozens of edible plants, know exactly when different foods would be available, and remember the locations of reliable food sources across vast territories. This knowledge was literally the difference between life and death. During seasonal food shortages, adult males specialized in protection and occasional hunting, but their most important role was as mobile sentries. While the group foraged or rested, at least one male was always positioned to watch for predators and potential threats. These sentries developed an almost supernatural ability to detect danger. They could identify the alarm calls of different bird species, recognize the movement patterns that indicated approaching predators, and coordinate rapid group responses to threats. Their shelters were temporary, but ingeniously designed for quick abandonment if necessary. Rather than building permanent structures that might attract attention from predators or competing human groups, they created flexible sleeping sites that could be established quickly and left behind without significant loss. These sites were typically located on elevated ground with multiple escape routes near water sources, but not so close as to attract dangerous wildlife. The shelter construction process revealed early human intelligence and planning ability. They would select locations based on wind patterns to carry away human scent, choose spots with natural barriers like cliffs or dense vegetation to limit predator approach angles, and always ensure multiple escape routes in different directions. The actual shelters were simple but effective: circular arrangements of thornbush barriers with sleeping areas, lined with soft grasses and leaves. Sleep itself was a coordinated group activity. Early humans never slept simultaneously. They developed rotation sleeping patterns where some group members remained alert throughout the night. This constant vigilance was essential because many of their predators, particularly the big cats, were primarily nocturnal hunters. Archaeological evidence suggests they may have slept in trees when possible, constructing crude platforms that provided protection from ground-dwelling threats. Child development in these groups was accelerated by necessity. Children as young as 4 to 5 years old were already learning essential survival skills: identifying edible plants, recognizing danger calls, and understanding basic group coordination signals. By age 8 to 10, children were contributing significantly to group survival through gathering activities and serving as additional lookouts. Perhaps most remarkably, these early human groups showed evidence of caring for disabled or injured members. Fossil remains include individuals who survived significant injuries that would have been fatal without group support. This suggests that even 4 million years ago, early humans had developed concepts of loyalty, mutual aid, and group responsibility that went beyond simple survival instincts. The family structure that emerged from these survival pressures would become the template for all future human societies. Specialized roles, shared responsibility, cooperative child-rearing, and mutual protection against external threats. 4 million years ago marked the beginning of humanity's greatest advantage, the systematic creation and use of tools that would eventually separate us from every other species on Earth. While early humans of this period hadn't yet developed the sophisticated stone tool industries that would come later, they were already demonstrating a level of innovation and problem-solving that was unprecedented in the animal kingdom. The first tools weren't carved stone implements, but rather carefully selected natural objects that early humans modified for specific purposes. A stick wasn't just a stick. It was potential digging equipment, a probe for extracting insects from logs, or a defensive weapon, depending on its length, thickness, and tip condition. Early humans developed the ability to see potential in ordinary objects, a cognitive leap that represented the birth of human technology. Termite fishing represented one of their most sophisticated early technologies. Using carefully prepared grass stems or thin twigs, early humans could extract protein-rich termites from mounds that other animals couldn't access. This process required understanding termite behavior, selecting the right tool materials, and modifying the tools through careful biting or breaking to create the optimal fishing implement. Archaeological evidence suggests they could harvest thousands of termites in a single session, providing crucial protein during seasonal food shortages. Stone tool use began with simple but effective applications, using rocks as hammers to crack open nuts, bones, and shells. Early humans quickly learned to select stones based on weight, hardness, and striking surface characteristics. They could identify which types of rock would shatter bones most effectively, and which would crack nuts without pulverizing the meat inside. This required understanding material properties and developing techniques for controlled force application. But perhaps their most remarkable innovation was the development of composite tools, implements that combined multiple materials for enhanced effectiveness. They learned to attach sharp stones to wooden handles using plant fibers or sinew, creating the first hafted tools. These primitive axes and scrapers multiplied human physical capabilities and allowed them to process food and materials more efficiently than any other primate. Memory and knowledge transfer became crucial elements of early human tool culture. Unlike other animals that might use simple tools instinctively, early humans had to learn complex tool-making techniques through observation and practice. This created the first educational systems, where experienced adults deliberately taught younger group members essential technologies. Children spent years learning not just how to use tools, but how to make them, maintain them, and innovate improvements. The cognitive demands of tool creation drove rapid brain development in early human populations. Tool-making required spatial reasoning, planning ahead, understanding cause and effect relationships, and the ability to hold complex sequences of actions in memory. These mental challenges may have been one of the primary drivers of increasing brain size in early human evolution. Innovation wasn't limited to physical tools. Early humans developed communication systems that went far beyond simple alarm calls. They created different vocalizations for different types of threats, specific calls for coordinating group movements, and even rudimentary signals for coordinating hunting activities. This proto-language allowed them to share complex information about tool techniques, danger locations, and food sources. Problem-solving abilities set early humans apart from their competitors. When faced with new challenges, like accessing food in high tree branches or extracting marrow from large bones, they could rapidly develop novel solutions. They learned to use stones as stepping platforms to reach higher locations, discovered how to use leverage to break apart large carcasses, and developed techniques for processing tough plant materials that other animals couldn't digest. Most importantly, They began to understand planning and delayed gratification. Early humans would carry useful stones and sticks over long distances, anticipating future needs rather than simply responding to immediate problems. This forward-thinking approach to tool use represented a fundamental shift in cognitive evolution that would eventually lead to agriculture, architecture, and space exploration. The impact of these remarkable early humans extended far beyond their own survival. Their innovations, social structures, and adaptations created the foundation for every achievement in human history. 4 million years ago, in the scattered family groups wandering the African savanna, the seeds of civilization were already being planted through behaviors and capabilities that would echo through millennia. Perhaps their most profound legacy was the establishment of culture as a survival strategy. Unlike other animals that relied primarily on genetic programming and instinct, early humans began developing learned behaviors that could be passed from generation to generation and modified based on experience. This represented the birth of cumulative culture, the ability for each generation to build upon the knowledge and innovations of their predecessors. Their sophisticated understanding of seasonal patterns and environmental cycles laid the groundwork for agriculture. Early humans developed detailed mental maps of their territories, knowing exactly when different plants would fruit, where water sources would be most reliable during dry seasons, and how to predict weather patterns based on environmental cues. This ecological knowledge was encyclopedic in scope and passed down through generations of careful observation and teaching. The social innovations of early humans proved equally important. Their development of specialized roles within family groups created the template for complex societies. The cooperation required to raise vulnerable children in dangerous environments fostered empathy, altruism, and mutual dependence that would eventually evolve into moral systems, laws, and governance structures. Every modern human institution can trace its roots back to these early experiments in cooperative living. Their tool-making capabilities represented the beginning of humanity's transformation of the natural world. While their tools were simple, the cognitive processes involved in creating, maintaining, and improving tools established the foundation for all future technology. The same mental processes that allowed them to modify sticks for termite fishing would eventually lead to spacecraft design and quantum computers. Early humans also established the precedent for human mobility and exploration that would eventually populate the entire planet. Their willingness to abandon familiar territories in search of new opportunities, combined with their adaptability to different environments, created the wandering spirit that would drive human expansion across Africa and eventually to every continent on Earth. The communication systems developed by early humans represented the earliest stages of language development. Their ability to share complex information about threats, opportunities, and techniques created the foundation for all future human knowledge transfer. Every story, song, book, and digital communication system evolved from those first deliberate attempts to share important information within early human groups. Perhaps most remarkably, fossil evidence suggests that early humans had already begun to develop symbolic thinking, the ability to use objects and behaviors to represent abstract concepts. Simple decorative items and deliberate burial practices hint at the early emergence of art, spirituality, and abstract thought that would eventually produce philosophy, religion, and science. Modern DNA analysis reveals that every living human being can trace their ancestry back to these early African populations. The genetic diversity present in these ancient groups provided the raw material for all future human adaptation and evolution. Every human capability, from our ability to learn languages to our capacity for scientific reasoning, has its roots in the survival pressures and innovations of our 4-million-year-old ancestors. Their greatest legacy may be the demonstration that Intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability could overcome physical limitations and environmental challenges. These small, vulnerable creatures proved that brainpower could triumph over brute force, that social cooperation could overcome individual weakness, and that innovation could solve seemingly impossible problems. Today, as humans explore space, cure diseases, and grapple with global challenges, we're still using the same fundamental strategies developed by our ancestors 4 million years ago: cooperation, innovation, communication, and the relentless drive to survive and thrive in any environment. If the incredible journey of our earliest ancestors inspired you, remember that their greatest lesson was simple: intelligence, cooperation, and determination can overcome any challenge. These early humans proved that even the smallest and most vulnerable creatures can change the world through innovation and teamwork. Share this amazing story to help others understand that every human achievement, from the first tools to space exploration, began with brave ancestors who refused to give up in the face of impossible odds. Subscribe for more incredible stories about human evolution, and remember that the same innovative spirit that kept our ancestors alive 4 million years ago still drives every breakthrough and discovery today.